Family TV. My name is Philip Melissa. This morning, we take the conversation to agriculture, and our partners from Siatini are with us to have a conversation around agroecological products. Now, what are these? What do they do? Where are they to be found, and why are they even important? That and more in today's conversation. And certainly, in that line, I do have Mr. Nice Musana, who is the programs and M&E manager at Siatini, Uganda, and he takes us through the detail of what this is, but also what we should pay attention to as Ugandans so as to benefit from this, especially the trade element of this whole arrangement. Mr. Musana, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Philip. Good morning, viewers. My name is once again Musana Nice, and I work as the programs and M&E manager at the Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. Thank you.
Southern and Eastern Africa. Wow.
Yes.
What a scope of work you have to do in all those nations that encompass that particular region. But we started here, agroecological.
Yes.
We don't want to be threatened by these very powerful terms for you, the scientists. What is this?
Agroecology simply has three dimensions to it. One, it is a movement. And there are a number of actors that play out in this field of agroecology: civil society, government, private sector, the farmers. And two, it is a science. And it's a way of implementing scientific methods that entail protecting of the environment, but as well as improving farmer-managed systems and ensuring that the products that are produced from these agroecological practices are climate resilient. But also it looks at having embedding issues of ecological farming in the way we do our agriculture, in a way that protects the environment, conserves the environment, but also it's looking at improving farmers' benefits through different forms of agriculture, ensuring that the environment is not destroyed, but also the farmers are gaining out of the farming practices.
You see, you talk about the environment, you talk about agriculture, and needless to say that severally we were told, and our children are still being told, that the backbone of Uganda's economy is agriculture.
Yes.
And they even widen it and say majority of Ugandans are employed in agriculture.
Yes,
and
yes.
I have had people here who ask me who employs them. But as we get to that level, this agriculture and environment, because nature and the agriculture that is done by human beings both rely on the soil, they rely on the rainfall,
Yes.
on everything that is in that category. And I want to understand, do we have situations where the two are on collision? Do we have a situation where agriculture does not agree with nature? Do we have situations where we can actually say that this agricultural practice is against the survival or the thriving of nature?
Yeah, thank you so much, Philip. You see, our economy has transitioned for a long period of time. And for long, as you've mentioned, we have been actually practicing agroecology unknowingly. In fact, there are farmers there who are practicing agroecology, but they don't know that these are the principles, these are the practices, and these are the policies that are being adhered to. But however, with this transition and the government advocacy to see that we transition to a money economy, there has been changes in farming practices, a lot of monoculture, because farmers are looking at producing crops that benefit them. They
Maximizing yields.
Exactly. They want the quick wins. And monoculture in a way that farmers are encouraged to plant maybe sugarcane on huge hectares of land. You're planting only one crop on a small piece of land. You're planting maize on a small piece of land. You're planting what? Generally, you're not mixing
groundnuts,
yes,
beans.
Beans.
We have banana plantations.
And these, of course, are targeting markets because you hear we have instances where stories are churning out and they're like, hey, this is what is gaining, and farmers are like, okay, let's go and plant vanilla. They all plant vanilla. This is what is benefiting. They go out and plant maize.
So that is not good in the agroecology.
In the agroecology principles, that it sort of waters down the entire process of agroecology. Because what the principles, if you look at the principles of agroecology, include the diversification, in the sense that you have to intercrop. If you're planting maize, intercrop it maybe with beans, intercrop with maybe groundnuts, and maybe at the edges of your small little farm, you can have trees, and that's embedding agroforestry within. So it's also looking at the use of agricultural inputs. What inputs are you using?
You see, Musana, before you even go to the inputs,
yes,
you talk about the having of different crops on the same piece of land.
Yes.
And again, agriculture, they talk about the competition that exists among plants.
Yes.
And I'm looking at where I've planted maize, and I have trees, maybe eucalyptus, then I have a bit of beans somewhere. The competition for nutrients and resources, including the sunshine, for example, those at a higher height will take the opportunity of the sunlight, and the ones that on the lower will be affected at that level.
Yes.
You know, the whole detail of photosynthesis and so on. Then when we talk about things like water, like the other smaller nutrients in the ground, how does it play out? And we're going to have one plant thriving and others just wasted.
You see, that's why I say it is a science in it, in the sense that you plant crops that depend on each other. If you see how we plant cocoa, cocoa is planted under trees.
Yes.
And the trees are specific. You will need to have trees with a high canopy in a way that they cover, so that the sunlight does not directly hit the cocoa plants themselves. So you, in a way, have to. In fact, there is need for capacity building of our farmers to appreciate how these play out. If you're planting, maybe let's say maize, you will have beans on the side, because you know that beans have root nodules that fix nitrogen in the soil. And when they are fixing nitrogen, and these depend on the nitrogen, they are in a way depending on each other. So it is a science in a way that you have to plant the right crops in the right order, but also in the apportionment of your land. It should be in a way that they do not compete with each other. There is also principles that are looking at spacing. You know that you will have to plant your maize at a specific foot. You leave that space, and then maybe after 1 foot, maybe you plant maize, and then you leave. There is also that principle looking at how you space your crops. There is also the principle of looking at which crops are you intercropping. So it's a science in a way that you have to diversify your crops, but having the knowledge right now is the challenge among our farmers.
And you see, that's where I was coming.
Yes.
Because you see, you are talking about the spacing and the intercropping and understanding which crop works with the other. That is a lot of knowledge.
Yes.
And when I look at my grandmother in Sansala, who barely saw one or two blackboards certainly doesn't have this knowledge to do with which crop works with the other, and even people that have actually advanced, you don't have many people in our educated class that have taken up agriculture as a serious knowledge area. So do we have capacity in terms of knowledge in our communities, in our agricultural spaces across the nation, to see that this that we talk about now, agroecology, is actually implemented at the different levels?
As you've highlighted, there is limited capacity, especially among the smallholder farmers, to appreciate agroecology as a way of conserving the environment, but also ensuring that we have sustainable food systems. You see, there's need for policy reforms, policy change, in a way that supports agroecology as a movement itself. People have been practicing, our farmers have been practicing organic agriculture. And in fact, there is certification for organic products. And they fetch better prices at premium markets, and they are recognized. But on the other side of agroecology, there is no system. There is no system to recognize, to identify, but also to certify agroecological products. And the reason as to why is, you see, with the organic movement, it has been strong. And in fact, that has yielded a lot of results among farmers. And people know organics. They know, in fact, when you plant your crops and you followed the organic principles, they even have labels. You're planting your crops, and then at the end of the day, maybe you add some value to them, and then they are certified. They are labeled well that these are organic products. But for agroecology, there's been limited funding. There's been limited capacity to strengthen the agroecological movement. And that is why at Siatini, we are seeing to it that we promote agroecology as a way of promoting livelihoods, improving our livelihoods, and also agriculture. At the moment, there are some strides that are being taken. In fact, we were invited recently by Makerere University because they are introducing a doctorate in agroecology. And this is now, as I realize, it's like the new thing on the block.
Building on the knowledge in this area.
Yes, exactly. Because you see, issues of climate are also embedded within agroecology. We need to have sustainable practices that protect the environment. Monoculture, in a way, is affecting the environment. If you look at people who've planted, if you plant sugarcane, trust me, after some time, that land cannot be used. You have to wait for maybe a period of 5 years for that land to rejuvenate its nutrients, and then it will be arable enough to sustain. So I think the movement has a big a task, a huge task ahead, to see to it that our farmers appreciate this.
So you talk about registration and these products on the market, and how they are differentiated, and them getting a higher market value when they are presented there as organic products. And understandably, Uganda, for the longest we've been here, our agriculture, like you mentioned, has been simply natural. Anyone with a piece of land, get a few seeds, go to your garden, plant, and you harvest. So, which would essentially mean we have a lot of the organic products. But when you flip it on the other side of the money, and we are talking about trade and export, we don't seem to see as much Ugandan products on the market, especially on the outside of the nation. Here, maybe yes, but on the outside, but also even in Kampala here, you will be surprised getting on the market, and you have things as little as Irish potatoes, as tomatoes, as onions that are coming from the outside of the country, apples, etc. Those things.
Yes.
What is the missing link?
You see, our smallholder farmers, actually, they are the biggest players in this movement. There is the limited appreciation of agroecology as a way of sustaining their production. And if you look at the people who majorly deal in these crops, they are also not aware of some of these laws. They are not aware of some of the opportunities within the market. For instance, there is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. It's one of those strategies under the African Union to promote intra-African trade. But if you go out on the street and ask someone, a trader, what is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? They do not know. Some of this information has been kept to a few individuals who appreciate and even know how to play out in this arena. And if you also look at there are other protocols that support trade. For instance, there's what they call the simplified trade regime. It is simplified trade rules that enable traders to transact and trade their products across borders in a simple. In fact, the tomatoes you're seeing on our market from Kenya are exploiting some of those, exploiting the simplified trade regime, because it in a way simplifies the trading of products across the borders, because there is there's limited use of requirements, for instance, like certificates of origin. The product source, as so long as they meet the requirements, they can easily cross the border.
Okay.
But there is need. The missing link that I say is that our players are limited in the knowledge, and also there is the playing out of the middlemen, because sometimes they are the ones who connect farmers to the markets. Farmers don't know where these markets are, but the middleman will come and he will exploit the farmer. He will check the farmer's farm gate price and limit it, because he knows where he's going to transport those products.
Okay.
And he will exploit the farmer. So there is need to also link the farmers directly to the market.
Who should do this?
We have a number of institutions to do that. We have a number of institutions to link the farmers. We have the ministry, we have even civil society can play, but in raising awareness, because we cannot directly link the farmers. But however, we can raise awareness in a way that we provide the necessary information to the farmers on where these premium markets are.
And you see, you talk about government, civil society. We do know that at the level of governance, of course, the Ministry of Agriculture is there.
Yes.
And this should partly be their mandate.
Yes.
We know that we have the Export Promotion Board.
Yes.
We do have this other institution headed by Mr. Agroecological. We do have a number of them. And yes, civil society, you talk about it, but also individual players in the field. And one gets to ask, we do have the product. We do perhaps know where the market is. We do know that there is demand for the same. But somehow we fail. Again, I did ask earlier, the missing link.
Yes.
Certainly the ministry knows what to do.
Exactly.
Certainly the Uganda Export Promotion Board knows what to do.
Exactly.
And the government is indeed willing to grow the export value of Ugandan products.
Exactly.
The missing point there is this is not done?
Yeah. And if it is not done, then what do we have to do about it? That raises the question, what should be done to see that this link is closed, this missing link is closed? Because you see, there are several aspects that a producer out there has to put into consideration. And one of those is looking at having the standards harmonized in a way that when someone is producing this agroecological product, they are aware of the practices that are embedded within the process of agroecology. And there is what they call the participatory guarantee system. And this participatory guarantee system is like a community check to see how if the products that are being produced by these farmers meet the requirements of being agroecological products. And in fact, it's based on trust, but it's also based on monitoring. There are community groups out there that reach out to the farmers, and then when they reach out to the farmers, they monitor to establish, is this farmer practicing agroecology, following these principles of diversification, principles of community resiliency, and also adherence to ecological practices. So when they do the monitoring, they certify the products. And when the products are certified, and then they are labeled, because we know there are a number of agroecological products that are perishable. In fact, if you look at most of the products, we are producing maize, it is an agroecological product, our coffee, the cocoa, and then there are those, if there are products that are perishable, then there is need for value addition. And the principles there are looking at value addition in a way that they do not use in the intensive inputs. Are you drying, not using chemicals? Are you drying to ensure that the products are not contaminated? Are you using local methods of adding value to these products? So there is need to also build the capacity of our farmers and also our community players out there to appreciate and ensure that these practices follow the standards, and also they see to it that the products that are put out there are viable and sustainable.
All right, and at that particular point, we head into a very short break, and certainly we do return with more conversation around agroecology, including discussing the element of quality that we talk about here, the element of the quantity in terms of how do we convince these farmers to go from what he calls cropping or monoculture, and tell these people to plant as many crops on the same piece of land, which in essence might limit the amount of yield they get from these pieces of land. We head into a short break and we'll be right back.
Issues at hand. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. Issues at hand.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is issues at hand, and this morning the conversation is centered on boosting trade and export of agroecological products, and our partners from Siatini, Uganda are here to give us the detail of what this is, and certainly going forward how we can benefit from this that we already have as a nation, but also reorganize, restructure, and see that we understand and get the best of what we can get from this investment. And in studios I have Mr. Nice Musana, who is the programs and M&E manager at Siatini, Uganda, taking us through this journey. Mr. Musana, yes. You talked about these products, the many of them, and how we can continue to benefit from them. But one of the things that come out is, as a farmer, I want maximum yields. I want to get as many kilograms of maize as possible so that I am able to sell in the market and get some cash. Yes. That is my interest. And you are telling me, no, you don't have to focus so much on the maize. Yes, focus there, but include in other crops that, first of all, are going to take up a bit of space. Yeah. They are going to certainly, there will be competition for nutrients, even when these are crops that complement each other, like you call it. But certainly the yield may eventually be affected in terms of quantity. What is that one issue or two or three that should attract the farmer to leave their single crop to the many crops you want them to get engaged in? Yes, yet at the end of the day, we are fighting the economy.
Thank you, Philip. You see, in fact, when this movement of agroecology, because I regard it one of it's a movement.
And perhaps you will also, because movement, yes. Does this movement have a leadership? Where is it centered?
It may not have a leadership necessarily, but it is governed by principles. Okay. It has those underlying principles and also practices that govern it. The farmer is the central player, actually, in the first, as you've mentioned. You want to see the farmer producing huge quantities, huge yields. Yeah, we do not dispel that because it is important. We are trying to move to a money economy, and you cannot achieve a money economy if you're not adopting improved methods of farming, using improved seeds, which are on the market right now. In fact, the reason as to why some of these seeds are even on the market, there were some arguments around there, and some institutions were like, there's a lot of famine in Africa.
Yes. Food security.
Food security is,
and you see, it is a priority of government to make sure the nation is food secure. There is then from having enough to eat, we shall have enough to sell. Yes. And that is the principle government is laying out. And even in the communities, it is encouraging farmers to use fertilizer, to use tractors, to do large-scale farming.
Yes. And you see, there's need to strike a balance between producing more for the market, but also ensuring that you have enough that can stay and sustain your home. There are instances where farmers are overly producing to meet the market requirements, and they are forgetting that there is need also to feed their families. The issue of actually to bring you back to the issue of feminine, and that's why there's been the improved seeds. when they were being introduced, they're like, yeah, in Africa, you people are facing a lot of famine, and that's why you have to use these seeds. And but one of the principles of also of agroecology is utilizing the indigenous seeds, because those ones are in our blood. Like, they promote our culture. They are in a way. In fact, if you meet people out there and they ask, and you're talking to them and they're interacting and they're like, which banana type do you plant? And you're like, for me, I want the old type because that one used to yield. I think you know those conversations.
Yes,
they used to, and I don't want these ones. They call them what, nads, what.
Yes, and the conversation is serious. For us. My mother, on our plantation, it is Mbwazirume. It is Chibuzi. It is so.
Exactly. Those are the crops we are. In fact, the issue is that once those are eradicated, we may lose out on those varieties, and yet they are the ones we've grown up knowing. I'm using Luganda, but you have to use Chibuzi. We've grown up knowing that these are the banana plantations we eat. Then we need, in a way, to sustain them, protect them, but also sustain them. And in a way that does not destroy the environment, but also ensuring that the farmers are also benefiting from them at a later stage, and also having increased yields. We need to have a level playing field to appreciate that the farmers should not overly rely on one form of agriculture. Philip, we are importing food, which is very sad. Do you know we import wheat? And this was also noticed during the Russia-Ukraine war, when there was shortages of wheat. We import rice from Tanzania. Yet we call ourselves the what? The food basket. The food basket of what?
The region and even the continent, actually.
Actually, yes. We are importing tomatoes,
onions, garlic, apples, oranges.
Which is a sad reality. Which is a very sad reality. Because where are we going wrong? Our farmers cannot produce these crops.
And you see, one of the limitations is that the traditional crops, those ordinary crops of the ones we know, number one, they take long to grow.
Yes.
And in terms of quantity, when they are putting fruit, it is still few. And farmers are saying, we don't have enough. The population has grown. We are 46 million people today. Then we were 15 million. We rose to 20. And therefore, if we stay producing the same way we produced 20 years ago, people are going to die of hunger. People are not going to have money. Yet we are saying 70% of the population is in agriculture. So how are we going to sustain that? It is you don't see the logic, and that's why people are saying, and government is saying, no, let us move on. In any case, all the other nations have moved on. The production in the different countries, that when we get this famine in our country, they are the countries that give us the aid in terms of food. Uganda has got aid in terms of food. Just even as recent as this concluding month, we had a rice donation from China. And so if we are talking about this, then aren't we being unfair to our farmers if we are telling them, please pull a little back from these very modern ways of agriculture, stay to what we know, so that we preserve? Haven't we done enough preservation with the environment, with the swamps, the rivers, the forests, Lake Victoria? We have preserved those. What is with this agriculture?
No, Philip, you see, I cannot say that the efforts we've done to preserve our environment are enough, because every day we are still destroying it. We are still destroying our environment. In fact, there has been some regulations, I don't know if you've had that conversation, on the EU instituting some directives that were barring people from cutting down trees if they want to sell their coffee on the EU market, so it should qualify that it was planted from in a deforestation-free area.
Yes.
Our farmers at the grassroots level, who are actually subsistence farmers, need the adequate services, first in the knowledge, but also in the practice. We have initiatives that were instituted by the government. We have the PDM, we have those the NADS programs. We also have extension workers, but the extension workers are limited. If you look at a district like Gulu, where we are having one extension worker tending to 1,000 farmers, or in fact, looking at the counties, there are 11, and one sub-county has one extension worker. That kind of, in a way, waters down the efforts to see that we are kind of propagating this knowledge to the farmers in an equitable manner. But you mentioned that if we make our farmers shift entirely from...
because we want to protect the environment, to conserve our indigenous crops.
Yes.
On one end, we shall have conserved the crops, but on the other end, people will not have food, people will not have money, and Uganda will not be developing.
No, the food will be there when they are practicing with agroecology. They are already practicing agroecology as we speak. The farmers practice it, but it is a matter of seeing how do we raise their awareness to know that that if I plant crop X and I plant crop B, I'm planting it on this small acre of land. I'm balancing. But at the same time, I'm protecting the environment. I'm not overly planting this crop as opposed to this crop. There's been that shift. In fact, our trading system has changed, and it's the one that's encouraging farmers to plant for export, to plant for industry, to plant for increased yields. But there's need, as I mentioned, to strike a balance. Otherwise, we will end up in the same situations where farmers, people are crying of hunger. The examples have been given actually for a long time. If you see in the Busoga sub-region where people are planting sugarcane only, and they are planting it because they know that it is a quick gain. The organ process the sugarcane, and then earn some quick money to maybe support their homes, and they are actually even renting out their land, which is at a disadvantage, because if you entirely leave your land, go give out your land to monocrop to produce for the industry, you will in a way be affected with famine. And those numbers came out in a few years back when this region was complaining of increased famine.
And it is true that, yes, we talk about the sugar cane in largely the east, but we do know that there are other regions in the west where they grow sorghum. Others you find them in millet.
Yes.
Others you find there are regions of coffee, and you find someone is just focused on coffee. And government has continued to support this bananas in the different regions. And again, we continue to notice the famine but around the country. But I want to shift to the inputs themselves. We talk about the fertilizers, yes, that are used in the crops. We talk about the pesticides that are used on... to begin with, again, with the organic crops, again, with the world has evolved so much, and we have many new diseases on the farms. pests that are destroying the farms, the crops, and etc. Do we have organic alternatives to the use of pesticides, to the use of these fertilizers that can now propagate much good growth and yields from the organic crops, so that we again reduce on what we use as what we say will destroy the environment?
And yeah, you've mentioned about that, because in fact another principle of agroecology is utilizing sustainable inputs. The use of pesticides is highly uncalled for, especially within the agroecological practices. There are alternatives that we have been using for over a period of time. And in fact, when you mention the times before we got introduced to this kind of inputs, the improved seeds, we were using organic methods. Farmers used to use ash. They used to mix ash with pepper. They used to use different kinds of concoctions to protect their plants from being destroyed by pests. And in fact, those are some of the principles. It's the use of those organic kinds of pest control, or you're using the integrated pest control management, IPM, where you integrate a bit of the synthetic, but also the organic. You don't overly use the synthetic fertilizer.
Does that have an effect on the quality of the crops?
It has an effect, because first it will protect the crop itself, and also in a way it is adhering to the principles of agroecology, using the integrated pest control management, because you're not overly relying on the use of pesticides. You're not overly relying on the use of fertilizers. So you're in a way protecting the crop itself from consuming these dangerous chemicals that can sometimes end up on the crop itself. And it's when we started using the improved seeds that normally require the use of pesticides, require the use of fertilizers, because our seed industry has been captured by the corporate companies, which are looking at promoting their seeds.
You know, there is that conversation of the corporate world and the multinational corporations that are, for example, taking over the seed industry, giving us one-off seeds, meaning you have to be reliant on their supplies. Then that takes you to the fertilizer, because they cannot grow without the fertilizer. Then the chemicals that are involved in there, etc. Is Uganda threatened, especially the agriculture sector, with the advent and indeed now takeover of that industry? But two, in now us trying to talk about agroecology, is it another way of protecting our sovereignty, like we are trying to do in the different sectors?
Yes, because you see, farmers have to be able to reshare their seeds as a principle of agriculture, because it's agroecology it's looking at our farmers sustaining themselves. They should sustain themselves in a way that they share their seeds and are independent. It can come in once in a while, but farmers ideally should be independent when they are producing their crops. Agroecology provides that principle, that farmers can ably reshare their seeds and replant their seeds.
Do we have a fighting chance in this battle?
The fighting chance is there in the policy way. We have the policies in place. In fact, Kenya have succeeded. They had their war, and the court had to revoke that, because they had criminalized the sharing of seeds. And now, with the movements, the civil society, the farmer movements, they were able to to put out a strong fight, and it was now rejected.
Okay.
So they are going back to their ways of sharing their seeds, seeing to see that they sustain themselves, and actually having improved food systems that can sustain their lives. Here, our farmers, Philip, our farmers cannot afford some of these products. In fact, when we were growing up, you would see in instances where your mom or your dad would buy the seeds and plant, but in most cases they would replant their seeds.
Exactly. My grandmother cannot afford those things.
Yes.
And what they do on every season, they put off, if it is maize, a few combs, they keep them somewhere, and when it is planting season, it is this that they pull out and do planting.
Exactly.
And that is how we survived through everything in childhood. There was always seed. There was a portion of beans for replanting, ground nuts, whichever.
Exactly. Because that was the time that was the time when our parents actually had this knowledge, and before they had this transition, before the corporate capture.
No, before you people ran away from agriculture.
In fact, we didn't run away from the agriculture, but now it's the money, because people plant to get money.
We are chasing the bag.
Exactly.
Musa, our time is very much fast spent in this whole fight and are looking to boost this trade and export of agroecological products. From where you sit at Siatini, what does the future look like?
The future. The first thing we need to ask ourselves is, how do we create this future? Because if we are not having Afrocentric knowledge in our kind of policies, the practices, we will end up being captured by the powers. You know, our executive director has this saying that, okay, it's a common saying that where elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. We are seeing a future where the big powers are fighting. There's increased tariffs, especially at the global market. There are these different geopolitical tensions that are causing shortages and affecting our farmers. The thing is, how do we create a future that will sustain us in that environment which is unpredictable? And in that sense, we have to adopt measures that sustain our lives. We are also seeing the increased climate variability. We need to put in place measures that curb the destruction of our environment. We need to put in place measures that sustain our food systems. We need to put in place measures that protect our farmers from exploitation. And how do we do that? We need to raise awareness, but also reform the current policies in place. We need to see that, one, the farmers have the knowledge to engage government, to engage at the different spheres and also arenas to present their issues, their appeals, so that they can be heard. We need to have policies in place that favor our farmers, that also favor the producers. Because if you can't also connect to those markets, we maintain a trade deficit with some of the countries where we sell our products, because ideally we are only selling agricultural products. Agriculture is the only sector that is sustaining us. But we need to balance our trade with those economies. And if we do not put in place measures that sustain us in the future, we are heading for a very tough future.
Headed for a very tough future. Mr. Musananais, thank you so much for joining us and for the thoughts you've shared with us.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Mr. Musana is the Programs and M&E Manager at Siatini, Uganda, and he has been sharing about trade and export of agroecological products in Uganda, and certainly looking at how our farmers and the entire country can leverage our advantages based on nature, but also looking at how we can continue to drive this cause home, benefit from it, preserve our indigenous farming methods, preserve our seeds, preserve our plants, and certainly continue living a very, very healthy life. And we hope that we can be able to have a chance at winning this battle and certainly live through the times that are projected and certainly grow our lives. My name is Philip Melissa, and thanks to the production team and everyone that has been a part of this, a very good morning.
Issues at hand